Hey kids, let's review classwork 22 for my pal Jasmine and everybody else who's struggling. Number one, connection question. Gordomir wrote many stories about the injustices of apartheid. She was also active in bringing change to the political entities of South Africa. In other words, she wanted to change the governmental policies in South Africa. Even though her books were banned in South Africa for a time, she resolved to stay instead of living in exile. That means that instead of leaving South Africa, she stayed and she wanted to change it. So, what do you learn from Gordomir's political point of view by reading the story? That means, what do you learn about her thoughts on the government's policies, on apartheid? Did she think it was right? Did she think it was wrong? Explain your ideas using evidence from the story. So, in other words, what are her feelings on apartheid? Prove that you know her feelings based on the story. This is one student's answers. Wow. All right. Ideal answer. She claims that Africa's riots and anger caused chaos. That's her political point of view. She believes that the riots are causing chaos and the nation has seen better days. All right. Does she believe that apartheid should change? Here's a quote that shows that she disagrees with the riots. I'm still looking for her point of view. The evidence suggests that the nation has become dysfunctional. Yeah, that's her political point of view. She doesn't like where the nation's going. It was no longer the same as before. And her political viewpoint is that the country has become terrible, so she would not have used the fairy tales example if she did not believe this. Yeah, the fairy tale is an example of how she believes her thoughts on politics. What the student could have done is just said she believes that apartheid is wrong. And the story is evidence of that. In that because of apartheid and because of the division between black and white South Africans, the white South Africans felt the need to build this fortress, update the security system to the point that it was dangerous to themselves and their son. Okay, so this is a good answer. Could be better, but it's as good as it gets for many. All right, number two, authors often leave things unstated, leaving the reader with questions about the outcome. What can you infer about Gordomir, what Gordomir leaves unstated at the end of her story? How does it relate to her statements about the family living happily ever after? All right, so in other words, some authors don't say everything that happens, okay? You have to figure it out in your mind. That's what inference means. You have to put the clues together and figure out what's going on. So let's see if this student was able to put the clues together. I inferred that the couple's young son died. He had to have died because he was battered, bloody, and his skin was ripped off. It relates to her comment for happily ever after, because nobody lives happily ever after, and we're all going to face setbacks. She gives another quote, and that shows that even though the author doesn't say the boy died, you can infer that the boy died. I didn't think the boy died, but after a Google search, I realized the student is probably right. I mean, they call him a bloody mass, so he's not even a person anymore. It's just a bunch of blood. So I'll take this as an answer that the boy died. She doesn't say the boy died, but you can infer that the boy died. What does it say about living happily ever after? I would have to say that, it's hard to disagree with the student. Nobody lives happily ever after. This family seemed to have it all, but they didn't. Because even after having it all, they were still scared to lose it. And that caused the death of the boy. What's the theme? And how does the author develop it using the story's setting? I would say that the theme of the story is, you should figure this out on your own, kids. What's the main idea of the story? What's the lesson? What's the message to the world? And how does she display it? Does this student represent South African apartheid? Story setup theme is do not let your fears control your behavior. Okay, that's right. Don't let paranoia be the deciding factor in your life. That's true. Anxiety to rebuild the home. Oh yeah, she didn't talk about South Africa, but she talked about the home as the setting and how it brought more anxiety and how it wasn't beautiful to them anymore because they would look at the security system. All right, I'll take this. All right. I'll take this because she is discussing the setting of the house. She discussed South Africa and apartheid. That would also be right. Take nothing away from this hardworking student. Identify patterns. What's the structure of the story? How is it similar to a fairy tale? And how does the subplot contribute to the structure? This is pretty difficult. The story is similar to a fairy tale. Fairy tales usually start out with the setting. There once was a boy who lived here. Something happens to the boy. This happened, and now the boy goes on a journey. And at the end, something happens to the boy. Usually, it's happy, and he lives happily ever after. This structure is similar in that it has a family, and it starts off happily ever after. And then there's a problem. There's riots outside, and the family wants to be more secure. But unlike a fairy tale, it doesn't have a happy ending because the family was happy, but in trying to maintain their happiness and preserve it and make sure that nobody can interfere with it, they interfered with their own happiness by creating such a strict um, security uh, in their house. Um, the story subplot contribute to the structure. The subplot, believe it or not, is she's trying to go to bed at night and she thinks she hears somebody. Or maybe she's in bed and she thinks she hears somebody downstairs. Okay, that's the very beginning. And then she says it's nobody, and this reminds me of a fairy tale. And she tells the fairy tale of this family that was so scared of everybody, they took too many precautions. They have the alarm system, they have the fence, they have the coiled thorns with the blades. And so at the end, in terms of the subplot, what's the mini story inside the story is she's wondering whether she thinks she hears somebody, she doesn't, and you can tell she's probably thinking, should she get a security system? And the story reminds her that she should not get a security system because she doesn't want to be like this family. She doesn't want to get to the point where her security is interfering with her life. She'd rather live her life than be overly secure like this family because, as what happened with this family, if she's too secure and she gets an alarm system, she's afraid it's going to ruin her life or make it a little more inconvenient at the very least. Number 5, notice and note. What actions do the husband, wife, and neighbors do again and again because of the fear of the outsiders? They keep upgrading the security in their home. I think that's a given. What does it show about the story's theme? I think this is a bit repetitive, but it shows the story's theme because it shows that you shouldn't let fear run your life to the point where fear is interfering with your life. Your fear of the outside world affects the beauty in your house. It affects how you think, and it affects certainly affected this family at the end by what happened to their little boy. Okay, and of course you need evidence. This is as good as it gets for ninth graders. So I hope these answer your questions, Jasmine. You don't have to take these answers, but I hope they help you in getting the answers for this assignment. And if you're not Jasmine, I hope this helps you too. Take care.